trouble getting the camera to go online here, but I think we're all set. So welcome, good morning, and we will get this live stream going right here. So welcome, good morning, and we will... Okay. So I think the first thing we're going to do here is I'm just going to give you a quick little tour of what I've got going on with this most recent project, because it's been quite an interesting one for me, to be quite honest. It's an entryway bench, and I started this off trying to come up with something to get outside of the box with just making everything straight and square. I really wanted to just start making things that were curved, so I came up with this curved leg design for this entryway bench, and it was quite a process. I was given some wood to use, and the wood that I was given to use wasn't thick enough in order to actually make up these thick leg blanks. So obviously I just took them and I laminated them. You can see the lamination lines here. There's 3 layers of some 4/4 stock. And I took it to the bandsaw and started to shape some curves here to make a bit of a, legs about 1 7/8 wide all the way from the bottom to the top. That's what it is here. But I've just kind of taken off some angles here, and I'm in the process now of using the spoke shave to kind of fair out this outside curve, and then some rasps on the inside curve. So this morning I think I'll just carry on doing a little more rasp work on these inside curves. And actually I found that the rasps are working very well for this outside curve, just to really smooth it out a little bit more, because the spoke shave did leave some flat spots on it and just a little bit of unevenness, despite how much I tried to work with the spoke shave to get that to fare nice and smooth. So I think what we'll do here is we'll just get the rasps out. We'll start working on some of these areas and show you kind of where I'm at with this. So let's switch gears a little bit and get into that. Leave me some comments in the chat and let me know where you're from. I'm kind of curious to know where everybody's joining me from. Could be kind of interesting to know if we're hitting many parts of the world or not. Got a little bit of a coffee going here too, guys. So I see there's only 3 people on. It'd be kind of cool to know where everybody's from. So give me a like on the video at least and tell me where you're from. Now, the one thing that I'm going to be doing first is maybe just kind of reestablishing some of my guidelines on the leg here, just so that I can see them easier for when I'm fairing these curves out. I kind of have a line here that I can see, but I was finding that if I had a much darker line, I was able to work to it a little bit easier. And I was using this piece of paper in order to follow this curve and my reference marks here. So I'm just going to use that to give myself a line to work to here. My current line's a little bit on the light side. I find this thick paper that I have works quite well to use as a ruler on these curves, because it's nice and thick and it almost acts like a flexible ruler. And this other one on this curve here, I can probably just freehand this one on here to an extent. Now, the one tricky thing I was finding with shaping these legs using a rasp was trying to get the angle correct on this, because it's not actually a 45-degree angle that I've got that I'm working with here. It's probably close to a 45-degree angle down at the bottom part along in here. But at the top, you know, it's actually not a 45-degree angle. You can kind of see that if I throw that little small square on there, right? So this horizontal run right here is actually a little bit longer than this vertical run in your on your screen there. So it's a little bit tricky, I have found, to change the angle of the rasp as I'm going from the top to the bottom of it. But it is what it is. We just kind of work away at it and we eventually get there. And yeah, so let's get this in the vise so we can start to maybe put a bit of shape on this thing here. And I wonder if I can get that camera set up even a little bit different or better for us here, just so that you guys can see really how this is all going here. If I use this other tripod, I think we can get a bird's eye view on this pretty good. Kind of like so. Yeah, there we go. And we won't hang out super long today, but maybe, you know, somewhere in the vicinity of 20-30 minutes. I'll see if I can get this one curve fared out. So if you can see, I'm just going to try and work right to this pencil line here. I've already kind of used the bandsaw to rough it out, and I'm pretty close to my line here. But we got a little bit more down at the tail end that we got to try and take off. So these are the RU rasps, actually, and I've recently just gotten them. And so far, I am liking them. But you see, already I'm off my line right here, because the angle you got to hold this at just kind of changes as you go down the curve. But slow and steady, we'll get there. And I was sometimes finding that if I used the pencil right on the surface of the area that I want to use the rasp on, if I go like this, give myself some reference lines, and it kind of helped me get the angle of the rasp held a little bit more precisely, because you can kind of see exactly where you're removing material as you're doing it. I probably have about a 1/16 of an inch of material to remove here. Yeah, let me know if you guys work with rasps all that much, or do any curves in your work. I haven't really introduced them into any project up until this point here. And I'm really kind of pleased or happy with how this bench is coming out so far. Hoping to get it done in the next few weeks. I don't have a lot of time to work on it as of late, but it will get done. Maybe you can even let me know what kinds of projects you guys are all working on at the present time as well. It's always kind of cool to hear what people are doing. So that curve's coming pretty good. We're getting there anyways. I'm trying to use a fairly light touch on this rasp because I don't want to overshoot my lines. I kind of already have on this inside part somewhat, but you're never going to see that. I'd like it to be a little more precise than how I have it, but it is pretty easy to overshoot those guidelines. Once again, we'll just get some scribbles on here to allow myself to see the angle I'm holding that rasp at just a little bit better. I find with the other couple legs I've done, that's really helped quite a bit actually. And what I'm looking for is to get a very, very straight, flat edge on here. And every once in a while, I'm just checking it just with the straight edge of my little small engineer's square, just to make sure I'm not getting too much of a round hump this way. I really want to try and get a nice straight line across. And a little challenging to do, but it's never going to be perfect, but I'm going to try and get it close anyways, because if I can get it close, then it's just going to appear pretty flat, even to the touch of the hand. Every once in a while, I just take this little nylon brush and clean out some of the teeth on the rasp here. I think I'm pretty good up on this top section here. It's really flat all the way down. Just a little bit of a transition mark right here. You can't see that maybe on the camera, but we'll just try and fair that out a little bit. And then once I get this really close, I'll use the finer rasp here in just a moment. And then I'm going to finish it up with a card scraper. Now down here, it's a pretty large radius or curvature on this sort of elliptical curve I've got, so I'll use the flat side of this rasp. And once again, I'm trying to use really light touch because I want to try and get this particular section fared out really nicely to a real fine point right on the edge of this leg here. And I think we're about ready to switch to the finer rasp because that is roughed out pretty good. There's maybe a bit of a transition right in here. Just try and get that out a little bit better than how it is. There, that feels a little more gradual, a little smoothed out, just a little bit better there. So we're going to switch to the finer rasp. And this one's a 13 grain. The other one was a 10. So the 13 grain is just a little finer. And this will just decrease the amount of work I have to do with the card scraper by a tiny amount. But I'm not going to do too much work with this one because these lines come out pretty quick and easy. Okay, Let's get that card scraper out, I think, here. Just trying to check the grain direction here. I know the card scraper is not going to tear it out, but I have found on these really tight corners, the card scraper does kind of tear out a little bit. We can, yeah, it's probably going to be okay going either direction here. So if you're just joining me here, I've just been working this curve down with the rasp a little bit. And this is a leg for an entryway bench that I'm making. And this card scraper makes really fast, quick work of getting rid of the scratching or the scratch pattern from the rasp. Really fast way to clean this up. And this also helps to get that surface relatively straight or flat across it like this, rather than it being somewhat crowned. A bit of a dip there that we might need to do a little more rasp work on to get out. I'm just using the fine rasp here because I don't want to take off too much material at once and make another little dip or a hollow. So I'm just kind of taking a little off at a time, kind of feeling for the progress. That's feeling a little closer to being right. Up here it's pretty much like end grain, so the card scraper can still do this. It just sounds and feels a little different. Not seeing any comments in the chat. What are you guys working on? What kind of projects you got going on? Yeah, it takes a little more time on this end grain to get the scratches from that rasp gone. There we go. That's looking a lot smoother. Much better. Still got some unevenness there I might have to try and take out though. Yeah, there's just something here that just doesn't feel right. I think I can see the color difference on the wood here too a little bit. For those of you that are still watching, do you use rasps much at all? Because I really, to be honest, have not. This is one of the, actually it is the first project that I've used them on, but so far I've found them to be quite useful. That feels much more consistent. Good. Okay. Okay, so that's coming pretty good. And I'm relatively close to my lines on there. Just depending on the lighting, I may use a bit of a different angle to be able to see my line a little better here and just to get it a little more consistent. There. That's pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that one there. Let's fair this outside curve a little bit while we're at it, because I did do this with a spoke shave, but I think I can just ease some of these little transition spots a little bit better with the fine file, and also probably with the card scraper as well. So let's do that first with the fine file here. I'm just once again feeling for any transition marks whatsoever. And that really flat, large radius curve there is pretty easy to fair out. And now we'll try and get this tighter spot. It's actually pretty good just off of that spoke shave when I used it. But we'll just get a little more consistency here. That's very consistent. I think this curve is one of the best ones that I had done with the spoke shave, so it needs almost no work to kind of get it to a nice, smooth, consistent curve here. Yeah, that's already set to use the card scraper on. So let's do that. And I might put it in the vise this way. I think I'll get a little bit better angle on it here. It's actually pretty fun to use some of these hand tools to do some, real precise hand shaping on things. It's just a nice quiet process. You can sit here, you can sip on your coffee in the morning here a little bit. Yeah, that's coming real nice. So I think we're almost done here for this morning. I've only got just a couple more minutes probably to get this curve all the way up to the top. It's coming out, probably this might be the best leg of the batch so far. This is the third one, so I've got one more to go. Just see some of the scratches from the rasp there, the light from the windows hitting it just right for me here. There we go. Let me know if you like these kinds of live streams where you just kind of see things in real time or not, because I can do more of these on a Sunday morning. That seems to be a time where I can be relatively free to do this before the day gets going for 20, maybe 30 minutes, just depends on whatever task I've got going for the day. I'm going to try and get close to this edge, but even a card scraper will break off the edge of a piece of wood, kind of like a hand plane will if you're going the wrong direction, like on a shooting board, for example, or against some edge grain. So I think we're about as good as we're going to. Oh, there's a bit of a scratch right there from the rasp. Good. Hopefully you can see that on camera, but that's coming out pretty darn good. And then I think I'm also gonna just go along this other edge that I didn't curve with the rasp. I did this one on the bandsaw and then cleaned it up with the template and the bearing guided router bit, the straight bit with the template. But it may need a little bit of fairing as well, because I do think there was a couple little jump spots with the, yeah, there's a bit of a mark there from the router bit when I used that. So, okay, well, let's just use that on there a little bit. Maybe we'll get that back in the vise. I don't know if you can see that little mark right there, but there's just a little dip right here from the router bit. So you kind of want to fare that out over a little bit of distance here just so that you can blend it. That feels pretty consistent now. So I'm just trying to get rid of some of these little scratches from the rasp here. There's a weird spot there, I think, where the router bit cut into it. I think you can maybe see that line going across right here. So I'll just try and work that out. Being maybe a little bit picky on that, but it's easy to get it now. Oh yeah, that's much smoother than how it was a second ago. Sometimes you got to hit things from a couple different angles until you can just see or find some of these little imperfections, and the light will hit it a little bit differently here and there, and you can see it. That looks a lot better. A little harder to go across this end just because it's the end grain, but a little bit of patience. It's not like I'm trying to make any money as a business doing this, so however long it takes is however long it takes. And I was just saying to somebody the other day how I like just being precise and trying to do the best job I can, because obviously woodworking is not my actual job, so I've got the luxury of just taking as much time as I want to get a project done and trying to do things to the highest level that I'm capable of. I don't know if anybody else is like that that's on here watching right now, but I certainly like to do the best I can. It's just kind of the way I've always been with pretty much everything I do. Sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's a bit of a curse. I'm really impressed at how well the card scraper can clean up the scratch pattern from the rasps, actually. And it's very little work. It's taking off some really good shavings. Wonder if I can get you guys a bit of a better look from the other side here, so my arm's not in the way. Just a few little scratches there I want to try and get out. Good. I think that's got it. Yeah. So I think I will let the live stream end right about there, everybody. So I want to thank everybody for joining me this morning. I hope you had a good time learning a little bit about what I'm doing, and I'll give you another update on this project at a later point in time. So for now, enjoy the rest of the day. Go build something beautiful.